So up until this point, there has been something of a debate as to where SUP sits from a governing body perspective, and that's been happening at the international level. So the international federations for canoeing and for surfing have both been in a little bit of a tussle to work out where SUP should sit, and that was in particular with regard to the Olympics and the potential for some SUP disciplines to become Olympic disciplines, which would be fantastic. It'd be amazing. And fairly recently, the International Court of Arbitration for Sport ruled that for the purpose of the performance side of SUP, that would sit with surfing, so with the International Surfing Association. But they also made it clear that both surfing and canoeing international and national federations and governing bodies have a really important role to play in the development of SUP, in particular at the grassroots. And I think the place where we've got to now with our joint agreement with British Canoeing and the joint recognition as shared NGBs for SUP is fantastic, and it's quite innovative in its approach. We don't often see governing bodies working together in this way across a sport, and I think what it does for the sport of SUP is it enables canoeing and surfing to both leverage their particular areas of expertise and come together to support a sport which has grown really rapidly and which is really multidisciplinary in itself. So there are lots of different ways that people can go out and enjoy SUP, and there are also lots of different environments in which you can enjoy SUP. So having both those NGBs bringing the kind of full force of their expertise and all of their services and their networks is really a good thing in terms of how we support the growth and development of SUP going forwards.
When you talk about the development, specifically, which areas are you referring to?
Yeah, so when we talk about the development of SUP, in my mind, I'm talking about how we support the growth of the sport, and there's lots of different parts to that. So I think right at the core, there's the safety side and the safety messaging. For me, that's the most fundamental and most important thing. And when you've got a sport like SUP, which you can go into lots of different types of environment and is very accessible, the safety information that you put out and the safety campaigns that you run are really important. So one of the amazing things with SUP is how accessible it is. It's really easy, and it's become quite cheap to now buy a SUP and get yourself out on the water, which is, that's a fantastic thing. But it also comes with some challenges in that we need to make sure that when people do that, they're going onto the water in the right way and they're following the right safety advice. So a really easy example of that is at the beach. If there's an offshore wind blowing and you're on a SUP, you're stood up tall, you act a bit like a sail. If you're new to the sport, you'll find it's really easy to paddle out because you've got the wind behind you, and then you turn around to come back in and you've got the wind right in your face pushing you out. It's really quick to tire and then to get into trouble. And so we need to be able to give people really kind of clear safety messaging so that they understand when they're at the beach and they want to go out in their SUP, what way's the wind coming from. It's really simple things like that can make a big difference. But for safety messaging, if you're then taking your SUP out in a river, it might be very different, and the equipment that you use with your SUP will also be different. So those are some of the challenges we've got around the safety messaging. And I think by working together, we've got a much better opportunity of bringing on board those who have direct reach to the new SUP audience. So I'm thinking in particular about some of the large retailers. SUP is no longer a really specialist bit of equipment. You can now buy a SUP in Tesco. So what are those large retailers like Tesco doing to help provide information to people buying their SUPs? How do they know where they're going to use that SUP, and how do they know what information they should be providing them, and what kind of leash should they be selling with that SUP? Those are really important questions, and I think by working together, we've just got a bit more resource to put into campaigns to reach some of those big retailers, so we can get them to start understanding their role and responsibility and changing how they operate.
During this campaign, I heard one person use the example of you can level up with surfing, i.e., you probably won't get on a surfboard and ride a big wave on day one. It's going to take you a long time to get up there, and you're going to learn a lot on that journey. Whereas on a paddleboard, you can head straight out into the middle of down a river that most people think at the time you shouldn't be on. You can end up miles away from the shore quite quickly. Do you think how do you hope to reach people about that? Because there seems to be the problem, doesn't it? There's very much an Instagram beautiful picture of, let's say, Californian sun, people out in bikinis, just having a great time next to the shore, which is very much what the sport is about. How do you hope, in England, for example, we're going to, what kind of safety messaging, what kind of approach are we likely to see?
Yeah, look, personal responsibility is key here. Like we are all ultimately responsible for our own kind of personal safety and for not putting others into danger as well. And we need to be able to, as a industry, we need to be able to explain to people what their kind of accountability is when they decide to go out for a sub. So we need to find better ways of getting to that audience. And for me in particular is those people who aren't used to being in the marine environment. So perhaps if you're on holiday and you've come to the beach, or you're on holiday and you're in the lakes, or by a river, and you think, yeah, I want to have a go at SUP and I want to get in the water. It's those people who not necessarily having the background in using that kind of marine environment that we need to reach. And I think there's a number of mechanisms we can use, and that ranges from closer working with the tourist board, even small things about the images that they're using, making sure they're using images that have got the correct safety kit in, and just making sure the messaging is right from the very start, through to the retailers, making sure that when they sell that equipment, they're providing the right safety information and they're selling the kit with the right safety kit. So a quick release leash, for example, being a really kind of key bit of safety kit. At the moment, sadly, the majority of SUP retailers still don't provide a standard. Should become a standard bit of kit with any SUP. We will be working closely with all of the providers of SUP lessons. So if you're new to the sport, having a lesson is still by far the best entry point. You'll get to ride on decent kit, and you'll get a benefit of an instructor who is qualified and loves the sport, and I guarantee you will shortcut your learning experience and you'll get more out of SUP in the long run 100% by going in and having a lesson first. And then people who rent SUPs, that's another big area. It's currently not regulated, and that's another area that, working together with British Canoeing, we've just been able to bring a bit more resource to bear, and target those hire providers so that they're offering a better level of kind of safety service and safety briefing with their SUP hire.
Two questions. Will we see a new name for the organisation, or are we gonna see Surf England, British Canoeing logos on anything official that's produced going forward? It struck me interesting when you were talking about leashes, because obviously leashes, it's very much in the industry scene that people wear an ankle leash on a paddleboard because of the connection with surfing, where you would wear an ankle leash. Is that something that specifically you might look to focus on?
So the cooperation between British Canoeing and Surfing England to support SUP, it's not going to result in a new organisation or a new name, but what it will result in is more kind of shared resources, more working together to create standards, more working together to develop safety campaigns, and just more consistent safety messaging. So there's an awful lot of benefits by working together, but we'll still be separate organisations, and we will still have our own areas of specialism. So you'll still find Surfing England really focused on SUP in the ocean, and you'll still find British Canoeing really focused on SUP in inland waterways, where we both have our expertise and our background. That's where it sits. In terms of leashes, depending on what environment you are taking your SUP in, we would recommend a different type of leash. So if you're like me and you spend most of your time in the surf zone, then absolutely a straight ankle leash, that's really appropriate, and that's the way to go. If you're supping, I would suggest if you're supping anywhere else, then I would just wear a quick release leash. In particular, if you're in moving water, so if you're in an estuary or where there are any obstacles, so I would say any river or estuary environment where there's boats moored or buoys or anything where there's even a hint of a possibility of entanglement, wear a quick release. They're really cheap to pick up. You wear them as a belt, and your leash attaches to that belt. And should you get into trouble, it's a quick tug of a toggle on your belt that will release, and you're disconnected from the board. So if you did get tangled around a groin, a pier leg, a buoy, a boat, another supper, whatever it might be, it's one quick action and you're disconnected and you're released, and you're removing a substantial danger there. So yeah, absolutely, I'd really recommend using a quick release belt for your leash. And what we'd like to see is for it to become far more standard practice for SUPs to be sold with that bit of kit.
Well, just one quick final question from me. What's the first change we'll see? What kind of timescales are you working towards now?
In terms of the first changes that you'll see, there's already a new role out for recruitment through British Canoeing, which is going to be there to support both partners in the development of SUP. So that's fantastic that we're going to have somebody 100% dedicated to SUP and its development, to the governance of SUP, to the safety messaging behind SUP. Someone's waking up every day and that's all that's on their mind. So that's great, and that's out for recruitment at the moment. The other things that you'll see fairly quickly, we're working with a number of partners in a team with the RNLI to develop a new set of safety messaging, really consistent messaging that any SUP stakeholder can use, and we hope to have that out and live ready for this season. So there's a really important step forward there. And then from my perspective, we will also be doing all that we can to open up some funding from Sport England to better support Surfing England to deliver its SUP kind of obligations. So we're a very small organisation at the moment, principally run through volunteers and a part-time team. So we've got a limited amount of resource, and you can only do so much with a limited amount of resource. So we feel it's really, really important that as surfing and as SUP continue to grow, and we need to put more focus, more effort and more energy into both sports, that we need to see Sport England and the other sports councils stepping forward and supporting our water sports, surfing and SUP, in the same way that they support tennis and fencing and all the other sports that they work with. So yeah, that's another kind of core ambition of us for this year.